From my experience and what I observe in other people, knowing what to do, even with a great amount of detail, is not enough. And it's not obvious to me what's missing, or at least it's not like there's one magical thing out there that will help me to act on the things I know I should do. I feel it's a combination of things like having a clear goal that's broken down into specific actions, knowing the consequences of not acting, knowing that time will pass anyway, so might as well have something to show for it, like skills developed, money, anecdotes, and reps. Test my limits of productivity within a sustainable framework, not working every second that I'm awake. And those were a couple of things that came to mind in order to think of concepts or things that would help me to finally act on the things I should act on. Then I thought that it was important for me to ask myself why I feel that I'm not an action taker yet, and the answer to that was the motivator to this week's newsletter. I feel I'm failing to act and follow through my conclusions that I come up with in my writing. Knowing what to do and how to do it, it's not enough to start and continue taking action, at least for me. So far, I've written 5 newsletters, and on each of them, I ended with a very specific set of actions and or actionable mindsets for me to apply moving forward. So I'll briefly go over how I've done so far on every single one. In writing my problems away in pursuit of my goals, I haven't applied step 4, which was reviewing my performance on a regular basis and researching for new things to implement or do differently. In I Research How to Research, I am applying all of the conclusions in this one with Alex Hormozis and Andrew Huberman's content. The problems are my newsletter ideas, and for now I mainly research Andrew Huberman's podcast, and I just kept consuming Alex Hormozis' content as a habit and not for something specific. In defeating my phone addiction once and for all, this one is by far the one where I haven't applied most of the conclusions. I couldn't apply step 1, which was putting my phone in airplane mode while working, since I hadn't had internet at home up until this week and I had to use my phone as a Wi-Fi hotspot. I didn't dedicate 30 minutes a day to social media yet. I consumed content throughout the day. I did step 3 immediately, which was describing to myself my big ambitious vision, which I did through writing a newsletter about it. I haven't applied step 4 yet, which was choosing to do nothing if I feel I don't want to work and I rather distract myself. This sounds like a waste of time, but maybe it recharges me with focus and energy to combat grabbing my phone while working, which I'm doing still, much less than before, but I'm still doing it. And for step 5, I doubled down on nutrition, training, and sleep, especially sleep, but I didn't do the sunlight as soon as I wake up because I don't get any from my apartment, so extra effort will be needed. In describing the goal that I set up for myself, the conclusions for this one are longer term, and I can only act on step 1, which was build a content creation system that allows me to create authentic and sustainable workload-wise content from the get-go, which I'm kinda in the process of by creating content myself. I could develop a version 1 system that's at least decent on paper to start selling a service already, not because I'm impatient, but because I could sell it to only one client as a guinea pig. I'd be upfront about it and work on it until I create a much better system and learn through practicing rather than theory. In how I plan to become unbeatable with calmness, contentment, and drive. As with the prior one, most of these conclusions are a continuous practice, and I believe I'm implementing them in a great way. The very actionable one is setting my schedule in stone, which is my next newsletter, so this will be taken care of in a week. Now, to recap a little bit, basically there's a lot of work to be done. I could be implementing all of those conclusions in a better way. But before talking about the actionable solutions coming up, I want to say this thought that came to mind while writing that I didn't know where to put. I have to remember I'm human. Applying every set of conclusions will require reps and therefore patience to make these habits a second nature to me. That's it. Now let's go on to the actions that I'll take to follow through with my conclusions that I hope that might give you some ideas or help you in your pursuit. For the conclusions on writing my problems away in pursuit of my goals, my next newsletter will be about setting my schedule in stone, and I will put at least 1 hour a week of reviewing my performance and researching what the people I admire are doing to see if I can implement something new. I won't blatantly copy. I will try to understand why they are being successful and try to implement whatever I find to be a great practice in a way that's authentic to me. For the conclusions in I Research How to Research, I'll continue to consume Alex Hormozis' YouTube videos every week, and on the weekends I'll consume at least one Andrew Huberman's podcast. I feel it's the perfect balance between very tactical and actionable advice from Alex Hormozzi and scientific and general advice on how to live from Andrew Huberman. For the conclusions on defeating my phone addiction once and for all, I will put my phone in airplane mode now that I have internet back in my apartment. For the conclusions in describing the goal that I set up for myself, 2 weeks from now I will write to develop version 1 of the content creation system that I want to ultimately sell alongside video editing labor. This will not only be fun, but also will allow me to start failing forward and work on it consistently. And I will encounter dozens of problems, which will give me a lot of things to write about. I'm very excited about this one. For the conclusions on how I plan to become unbeatable with calmness, contentment, and drive, I'll write in my next newsletter about setting my schedule in stone, applying all the concepts and mindsets that I wrote in this newsletter. There are very actionable steps on all of these conclusions and all the future ones coming up where I'll know for sure if I'm acting on them or not. But there are also a lot of concepts and mindsets that are harder to measure and feel if I'm acting on them completely. That in itself will be a challenge because they might sound like not a big deal or that if I remember them every once in a while will be enough. But no. Those mindsets and concepts, if applied to the fullest extent possible in my daily actions, will probably be the reason I succeed. Just as I wrote about patience in last week's newsletter, a lot of these concepts and ideas sound so simple and naive that I tend to have them go over my head. But I'll do my best to give them the importance that they deserve and act on them with full conviction. This type of newsletter, where I revise all of the conclusions I've written so far, might be a recurring one, because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is action, and I want to make sure I act on everything I conclude in my writing. Thank you for watching the video. I think this week's newsletter was a little bit different because it was very specific to me, like all of the videos, all of the newsletters, but this one in particular was very tactical to what I'm doing, so maybe it won't be that useful, or maybe it will, because as with everything, I feel that talking about very specific actions, anyone can pull out what they can use for themselves. So that's what I'm doing with all of these videos. I'm talking about my problems and solutions so people can implement them in their own way to their specific pursuits if they see my solutions to my problems as worthy of implementing or trying to copy or trying to emulate in a certain way. But again, thank you for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoy it. Do all of that stuff that I think I don't like doing these outros because it's really obvious that I want you to follow my journey. So I might stop doing them and maybe use this section in the future when I have bigger and better updates. So for now, I'll just say thank you. Hopefully this is helpful in some way. I'll keep writing for years, like I wrote in the newsletter about patience. And yeah, this is just one of a lot of videos coming up. So thank you again. I like that. Fuck it.